Hi, welcome to the Career Corner. My name is Heather Swift, and I'm delighted to be your host. The purpose of the Career Corner is to help people move from career distress to career success. Have you ever wondered how to develop your own personal brand? Do you need one? Yes, you do. Everybody does. And today, my guest, Amy McGlinn, CEO of McGlinn Marketing, is going to help us figure out how to make one, why it's important, and some steps to help us do so. Amy, welcome to the Career Corner.
Thanks, Heather. It's my pleasure to be here.
So, personal brands. What does it mean to have a personal brand?
Well, everybody has a personal brand, whether you know it or not. In the age now of Twitter and Facebook and email and all this internet stuff going on, everybody has a perception. And that's really all a brand is. It's a perception or a promise or expectation of what you're going to get when you buy a product. And then therefore a personal brand is just an expectation or a perception of what you're going to get when you interact with a certain person.
So I always think of, at first, brands like Nike, Just Do It. There's certain brands that we purchase that we have a feeling when we walk into a GNC store or Forever 21 when we're not. But we expect certain things or feelings with certain product. So in the same way, what I hear you saying is that how we show up and how we act creates a certain feeling with people as well and what they expect from us.
Absolutely.
Is that true?
Absolutely. Okay. And the big companies like that, they exactly want you to have a feeling when you walk into their store, when you buy their product, when you experience their product, as they would say, their product or service. And they craft that. They're behind the scenes. There are folks that get paid, the big bucks to craft those sorts of things. But nowadays, we're all our own personal brand, and we need to really pay attention to that to make sure that we represent ourselves the way we want to be represented.
When working in career services, I've always thought the elements of this are so important because from the interview on, people are watching you, from the handshake to the eye contact to the follow-up afterwards, all of that is coming into play.
Yes.
So how are you taking some of these skills into smaller companies that are trying to launch and create a bigger brand? What are some things you're finding people need help with?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing that folks need help with, and the biggest misconception, I'll say, out there about branding is that companies and people for their own personal brand, they look outside of themselves for who they are. When I think that we really need to look inside of ourselves for who we are because we're the best us that we can be. You're the best you can be. You need to look inside yourself first.
I've tried being someone else before, and it
doesn't work for me. Right?
It really
didn't. Exactly. So you know what you stand for. You know what you believe in. You know what your manifesto is, whether it's in business or even personal life. You know what your goals are and all those sorts of things. So it's up to you to put them together and package them in a way that is digestible and likable, lovable to other people that you want to be with.
Now, where did you get all of your experience for branding? How did you get your feet dipped into the pool of this? Because it's a big industry.
Yeah, I think even as a child, I just loved looking at brands. It wasn't called that back then. Now it's kind of in vogue to talk about branding. Back then, it was just more companies and doing things, and you would think about how you felt when you opened that can of Jif peanut butter and that smell and all those experiences. I loved to investigate those. And then, of course, I went on and after college, I went and worked on Madison Avenue and really experienced how they create those sorts of brands. And it's a bit of a machine, and it's interesting how you can create the perception of a service or a product. It's fabulous.
I think that that's why most people who are parents, come the holidays, you want to turn off every form of communication with your children because they see it on TV and they're mesmerized, like, oh, I must have this. I'm like, you don't even like that. Well, no, but look how new this version looks. So it is very interesting how all the pieces from the advertisers to the colors to the packaging, like all of this really comes into it. So are you taking your Madison Avenue experience and then putting that onto individuals?
Oh, absolutely. The way the folks on Madison Avenue do it is easily translated into small businesses. Small businesses and personal branding as well, however, I feel are much better at it because being smaller makes you more agile. A big boat like Procter & Gamble, it takes a long time to turn it around. A small boat like small companies, local companies that are looking to just serve people in the immediate area can turn things around a lot faster. And that's why I enjoy working with those folks because you're just so much more agile.
Can you share some of the companies, well, not necessarily the people, but kind of organizations or people you've worked with locally? Like what kind of types have benefited, and any success stories of like before and after, or kind of like what you thought, wow, they really need a little 180 or maybe a whole 360 and then some, like
right,
turn around?
Yeah, absolutely. I love to work with folks that have a huge passion for what they do, but they just get a little overwhelmed with the marketing. It's a little bit too much for them, and they don't understand how to get their message out there to the public. Those are the types of folks I love to work with. And I've worked with folks that are career coaches, spiritual coaches. I've worked with sound healers even, folks that are in financial services. All those kinds of people need these kinds of services, because you are not an expert in marketing unless you work in marketing. And you shouldn't be, right? I mean, you shouldn't be. You should be you, and you should bring your own gifts and talents to the world, right? And you do need that extra help to shore up your marketing efforts and your branding efforts. And I also think just even talking to another person about who you are and how you're going to present your personal brand or your company's brand to the world is incredibly important.
I would think, too, some people, when they're speaking with you at first, they think, oh, my brand is so clear.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm in ice cream sales. I sell ice cream, best flavors ever. And then when they're speaking to you, you're going, oh, they really don't have a clear sense of reality or how they're coming across. Because I think as much as we love to be our best advocate, we're often, not our best advocate. And sometimes it gets lost in translation. So are you finding sometimes reality and really what they're being said or how people are perceiving them is very far removed from their own personal truth? There's just a disconnect at first?
Absolutely. Absolutely that does occur. The biggest thing I find, though, is that people hold themselves back from really what they give to the world, what they give to their customers, what they give to their target audience. They don't go that extra mile and say, you know what, I make your Friday night so much better because you and your family enjoys my ice cream and everybody's smiling and you all go to bed happy. They don't go that extra mile to say that. They'll just say, I sell ice cream. And that's it. And that's where marketing comes in and tells you the whole story, the whole emotional benefits of what you do.
What has been one of your biggest challenges, or can you tell like a test case of something that you were so proud of when you got this person through the hoops of transformation on the marketing side?
I think, again, like we were just saying, it's all a bit challenging because people really want to hold back in a sense that they don't want to say, I can totally change your life. People just don't want to say that when they actually kind of do change people's lives, and they should go ahead and say that. So my job is to kind of lead them out and get the bunny from the bushes, so to speak, and get them to say that in a way that feels comfortable for them and in a way that feels like they're really giving something to their target audience.
So if someone in our audience is thinking about themselves, I wonder what my brand is. And it's not just when you have your own company, because when I'm coaching people in careers, I'm talking about, when people think of them, what comes to mind. So what are some tips that we can share with our audience about when people start doing the self-reflection on what they want their personal brand to be? Can you share some tips about that?
Absolutely. And that is something you definitely should reflect on. Your personal brand obviously starts with you. So what I would do is list 4 to 5 qualities that you treasure about yourself. And to do that, to kind of jog your memory, think about the jobs that you've had in the past, the friends that you've had in the past, the interactions you've had in the past, and things that those folks have said about you, your past employers. What have they said about you? Any letters of recommendation that you can dig up and take a look at and get some information off of there? We're not always our best advocates. Other people are. So I would look to that sort of information. What do our friends say about us? What do our friends come to us for? Do they come to us for advice, or do they come to us for quick decisions, or what do we offer to those closest to us? That's where I would recommend that people start.
Kind of start doing an introspective take and kind of figuring out where are other people looking at us. So once people are trying to figure out, okay, this is my intention, this is what I want my brand to be, how hard is it, if they realize what they want it to be is different from what it has been, how hard is it to kind of shift that? And how can people start to shift it so it becomes more of what they really want it to be?
Yeah. It depends on how committed you are to it. For example, if you feel like you're an open and honest person that's always communicating the truth and really having the best things to say about folks, And then you find yourself on the phone in the corner of your office talking about so-and-so and gossiping here and there. We've all done that. That's something that happens, but you do need to catch yourself and say, hey, wait a minute. Am I living up to my brand? And at that point, it's more than brand even, isn't it? It's more just, am I living up to my life's mission? Is this really who I want to be? Of course, we're all going to just gossip maybe just a little bit, but it's the fact that you catch yourself. And then when you do that, you'll be able to turn around that whole perception of who you are.
I wonder what the stats would be for people like in business too. We've seen some things where people have had a fiasco and they have to change it around,
Yes.
like Martha Stewart.
Yes.
Her brand was solid enough. She still went to prison and came back, and she still lost none of her brands.
Yes.
Really, everyone's come back. Like it takes a really strong brand, I think, in the beginning to be able to handle a crash.
Yes.
And return. I don't know how many regular folk outside of the famous ones are able to do that.
Yeah. If big companies like that can do it, I think regular, everyday folks that maybe you're on a job and you get fired for something that you didn't really do, or maybe you did do it and you just kind of messed up and you want to start over again. The American public is completely forgiving. That's something that we know for fact,
Yep.
So just go around, pick yourself up by the bootstraps and figure it out, and you'll turn it around. I absolutely believe that.
Amy McGlinn has full faith that you can turn it around. That's good, because, people want second chances, and I think when people...
And people want to give them. People want to give
Yeah.
second chances,
Yeah.
and I think
especially when I think true regret is there and people really feel sorry.
Yeah.
Not that they're caught doing something and then texting again,
Yeah.
when they're running for
Right.
office.
Yes.
It's like, okay, fool me once, shame on.
Yes.
So there are some elements that are a little crazier in that way.
Yeah,
But we're going to take a
absolutely.
quick break for a moment. Okay, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a quick second for this break with Amy McGlinn, CEO of McGlinn Marketing.
Local government, local educational institutions, and local community members all use cable access TV to communicate their message. They depend upon it as an affordable means of outreach. Public, educational, and government access television empowers local government agencies, individuals, and groups to use the media to speak directly to their constituents in a more direct and cost-effective way. Make sure everyone has a voice. Support your local PEG channels.
Hi, welcome back to the Career Corner. I'm here with Amy McGlinn, CEO of McGlinn Marketing. We're talking about personal brands. So, Miss Amy, now that we have figured out maybe what we want our brand to be, whether it's our business, it's who my brand is within an organization, which is more typical. Not everyone is an entrepreneur or a self-business person. How do you live your brand? How do you begin to do that?
Right. The first way to live your brand, the best way to live it, is to embody all those things that you said were you, and just be that every day. Some people might say, oh, of course that's me. Sometimes contradictions come up, as we've discussed before. So that's, you want to be careful of those. You want to watch out for those and be, as we would say in marketing, in integrity with your brand, right? You have integrity with your brand. So that's number one. Then there are more obvious ways, which we can talk about too, like your business card. Everybody has a business card. From your title that's on your business card, that expresses who you are and your brand. The email address as well, that expresses your brand, how your name is laid out. And that's not a concern for most people that are corporate folks, but it can be. Also, your blog, if you have one, that definitely expresses who you are and what people can expect from you. Your Facebook profile, your Twitter profile, any kind of portfolios for artistic folks that need to have a portfolio of work, or even just writing samples and things like that. All these things are proof of what your brand can do for a potential employer.
And one thing I want to mention, that for the typical person working, whether they're an executive or mid-level or just a college student starting out, not to ruin your brand before you even really have one, or when you're just creating it. And I speak to graduating seniors every year for a New York City event, and I love it. It's through New York Cares, and I'm always begging them, don't ruin your brand until you actually have one. When I was an idiot in college and we're being silly, it's in a photo in my in an album. You know what I mean? It's not
Yes.
viral.
Yes.
I said they have to be so careful and really create a sacred space for what they're putting out there
Yes.
media-wise. Because you can act like, oh yes, I'm a healer, or I'm someone in line for succession for a really important role, and then I'm dropping really bad words on Twitter and throwing people under a bus and showing inappropriate pictures on Facebook. You can't have all of these things, not matching up. It's like the
Absolutely.
inconsistencies. People see right through that. They're like, this is the healer who's like,
Right.
doing what? Committing, tax fraud, and she's throwing back a
Absolutely.
party bong every weekend.
And when you do those sorts of things, you lose two things. You lose trust because you're not acting in integrity with who you say you are, and you lose loyalty. People are not loyal to you anymore. They don't know what to expect. They're just kind of like, see you later. That somebody else can fill in that position or do what you need, what you're doing for them. So you lose those two things, which are really huge and hard to get back. I believe you can get them back, but they're kind of tough.
Sometimes it takes some work.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole idea of personal brand came about because of the era of Twitter and Facebook and those sorts of things. We're all labeling and naming things, each other even, based on what we see.
With tag words to find each
Yeah,
other.
absolutely. So that's how that whole thing came about. That's how this whole personal brand thing came into play, because you need one, because if you don't have one, it exists anyway. So why not control what people are saying about you and how people perceive you?
Yeah.
That's where the idea
There's
came
a
about.
similar saying in careers that if you don't take charge of your career, somebody else will.
Yes.
Same thing with your brand, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think too, just like I love that integrity, like having integrity of your brand and how you're showing up, because it's so true. And I think when we don't separate our work lives from our spirit lives, from our home lives, and we really become this one brand, doing the best we can and trying to create good wherever we go, to help, to share, to uplift everyone. Because when you do well, I do well. When I do well, someone else does well, and we all can lift each other up. And
Absolutely.
I think the more, that may sound a little granola-y, but I think energetically and with business, I see that. I see the good deeds in corporate America all the time from these amazing HR people I work with, and they're sharing their values in such a way. Some of these women I meet, you would never know they're in financial services, because they're truly such bringing their whole self to work, and their brand is of such integrity that they do uplift the workplace, and they're so Johnny on the spot, just taking care of their populations in such a beautiful way that it's so inspiring to see that, because it's a really rough world. The brand of financial services is rough, and then you're a female in it, but also trying to be a shepherd of the sheep of HR, helping. It's just very interesting, to see that. And
that's very true, and it's a great example as well of how you can create your own personal brand. So say you wanted to just brand yourself as somebody that shares good deeds with others and uplifts others. Well, that may sound a little crunchy and a little bit, kind of tree hugger. However, what kind of employer would not want to hire somebody that uplifts the good deeds and values of others? Like that is just truly wonderful. What kind of family wouldn't want somebody like that in their family? What kind of community wouldn't want somebody like that in their community? So even something that's not as hard-hitting as, I'm a fantastic organizer and wonderful, Excel spreadsheet maker, that's great. But something like that doesn't sound as hard-hitting and as corporate America can actually be a really beautiful thing, and something that if you truly believe it and live it and love it, can really help you get a leg up and get you to where you want to be, which is creating a better community for yourself.
It's kind of like a breath of fresh air also.
Yes.
I once had a boss about 10 years ago tell me, he said, I wish you looked more serious when you worked. So people would say to me, what's wrong with Heather? And I would just say nothing. She's just working really hard. He ended up getting fired. But I remember saying to him, well, that's really not how I work. I go, why can't we have fun and work our butts off and really work hard but still enjoy ourselves? And I go, part of what I do is add levity. I cannot help it. It's so ingrained in me to want to find the funny and to say, let me make these people laugh because everyone's working so hard and so serious. I'd like to try to be some of the light.
Right.
And not just adding to the, oh my gosh, time to make the donuts again. Like,
Right.
let's have fun with that frosting.
Right.
Let's do something crazy. But he was so not used to my work style that he was like, well, my numbers were great. My clients love me, but something must be wrong here because she's having too much fun.
Exactly.
So-
And that might have been a mismatch just for that instance, but I can think of so many people that would love to have a completely fun-loving, spirited person on their team that just really helps you get through those tougher times and celebrates the great times with you. And that right there is yet another facet of possibly what's becoming your brand right now, shares the great parts about community and uplifts others and is a really funny gal and likes to see the fun in things.
Well, thanks, Amy.
Yeah. So there you go, a little free branding work for
thanks.
you.
You send me my bill. The bill will be in the mail. I think sometimes people wonder, how can some individuals not have such a great brand, meaning that they're just not really nice, not kind to work for, really hard, not fair for whatever reason, and they keep succeeding. And I've seen some people finally go through job loss and have to recreate themselves and think, oh, finally it does come around. And I just want to encourage people out there that might have had a situation where it seems like I'm always taking the higher road and everyone who's not is still there or getting the jobs, that things do bounce out at the end. And
Absolutely.
that no one is fooling anyone with what their brand is.
Yeah.
Because if you don't keep showing up, you're not fooling anyone but yourself.
Absolutely.
And for better or for worse, whether we're late, whether we're borrowing money from friends never paying back, whether all of these things that we don't think ever, oh, they'll forget about that. People never forget. They
Yes.
might forgive, but they don't ever forget.
Again, eroding the trust, eroding the loyalty of others. People maybe don't think of it that way, but it is absolutely occurring all the time. So, heads up is the message, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's branding or just life in general, it's heads up. Like, this is happening. This is working either for or against you. So let's harness it and make it work for you and make it really powerful for you and push you forward to where you want to be. That's something that branding also helps you do. It helps you define your future. If you're not the strongest cheerleader on the team, but you really want to be somebody that's incredibly supportive, put that down on your branding statement that, I'm supportive. I'm as supportive as I can be right now.
I'm a great vice president and I like my pom-poms.
Exactly.
But I'm not the high kicker or the lead cheerleader.
No, and then, after a while, though, when you keep saying that to yourself and keep saying that to others and you're noticed as a supportive person and somebody that can play a really great role in an organization, you'll find yourself there because you've created it. You've pointed your direction to your own future.
I recently heard a beautiful talk from a spiritual teacher named Gurmai, and she said this simple quote. It was so lovely: always be the person that you always want to be.
Yes.
And I thought, well, isn't that a little spiritual bent, but on branding, that if we keep striving to be that person that we always want to be, we'll get there.
Yes.
But we have to always put forth that effort. And
Yes.
then other people realize, I think too, like we said, that when you are sincere and you are trying for that, even when we fall from grace or we make a mistake, if our intention is good, people get that,
Yes.
at the end of the day. And as you're trying to create your business or your brand, or you're trying to change what your brand used to be, say you were in marketing and now you want to go to something on the different side of it, or you're retail banking, now you're going to investment banking, because people do get pigeonholed in their careers.
Yes.
And I always want people to feel that they can be recycled.
Yes.
We can recreate. But I think it takes effort from all these different areas so they reflect what the new intention is for their brand.
Yeah.
Can you talk to how can people kind of recreate themselves, or what are the best social media tools now to try to do that with?
The first thing, again, is introspection. Always, always, always start with yourself. And I think the best way to do that is to get a different perspective. Your own perspective on things is incredibly valuable. You can get a lot of information. Obviously, you are the keeper of your own information. You can write it down and write down, I would say write down all the jobs you've had, all the experiences that you've had, things you love to do, things you always kind of find yourself doing, hobbies and things like that. Get that down on paper and then maybe go over it with somebody else. A good trusted friend is really worth their weight in gold in this sort of instance. You can have the same qualities, skills, hard skills, soft skills, all those things that can fit in many different areas. You just need a fresh pair of eyes on it. So
once I know what I want to switch or how I want to be perceived or what job action I'm taking to switch, then what's the best medias to help say, oh, I'm doing X right now? Or, would you recommend people try to start a blog or create a website? Like, what are some quick ways to kind of say, hey, this is what I'm about now?
Yeah, well, the good news is there are so many different ways to say, hey, this is what I'm doing, right? It really depends on where you're going and what kind of change you're trying to make. Okay, so off the bat, you're not saying, hey, everybody, I'm totally changing gears.
Balloons and doves
Yeah,
kind of out of the question.
Absolutely, absolutely. don't post 5 times a day. It's just not going to work. People are going to be annoyed, and they're going to say,
delete.
yeah, exactly, that annoying person.
Block.
That's now part of your
Okay.
brand. But all these different ways, my approach is an integrated approach. So I would say use everything, because nowadays that's what folks do, right? You don't have a blogger that doesn't get on Facebook and that doesn't tweet and that doesn't kind of parse up their content in many different ways, doesn't go, keep their website updated, all those sorts of things. I would try it all different ways. And for the target audience that you're looking at, say that your target audience is a different kind of employer, or maybe you want a new group of friends, or whatever it might be, see what works for them, and then you've got it. Marketing is all a big experiment. It's throwing the spaghetti up on the wall and seeing what sticks. Most of the time, smart marketers can figure out what sticks before it does. But most of this stuff, you just have to take it very lightly. Don't take it too personally, even though it's your own brand, and just experiment, have fun with it, and you'll get there.
So we're just wrapping up now. So for people that are interested in saying, hey, I need an Amy McGlinn in my life for my personal brand launch, for my relaunch, for my small business, for my personal practice, how can we find you?
You can find me. You can go to my website. I have a form there. Just fill it out, and I'll contact you. And
it should
all
be
the
like
information's
down
there.
here
It should
somewhere on the
absolutely
screen?
be
Okay.
right somewhere near me right now. So go there, and I'd be more than happy to chat with anyone about their marketing needs. It's my pleasure.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being on the Career
Thank
Corner
you.
today.
This is fabulous.
And thank you all for joining us. I hope you learned some exciting ways and items on your checklist for how to create your personal brand. Until we meet again, I wish you much career success. Check out us on YouTube and under SOMAtv. We have a lot of shows under the Career Corner, so different topics to help you with your career success. Take care and see you soon.